Well, in big news this week, the WA state election result.
Mm.
Wow.
Ouch.
Yes, lots of ouch and
Mm.
wows. ABC
Red
psephologist
faces.
Anthony Green called the election for Mark McGowan's Labor 43 minutes after the polls had closed, with just 0.07% of the vote counted. The WA
That
Liberal
is
Party
batshit
can
crazy.
share an Uber to work and can caucus in a phone box. Reduced to just 2 seats, maybe 3, maybe not. 52 to Labor and 4 to the National Party, which is in WA, genuine country party, genuine regional party, not in coalition with the Liberals. And
I did
they
not know
actually
that.
make much of the fact that they
is
are
news.
not Liberals. So quite separate, and they will be the new opposition.
Yes.
For the Liberals, it's a game of rock,
Yeah.
paper, scissors to determine the leadership, or maybe just, heads or tails. Labor.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Who draws the shortest straw, really?
Who's closest to the office?
Who wants their political aspirations to be extinguished as quickly as possible? Anyone? Anyone tired of this political gambit? Anyone?
Yes, we'll get to Zach shortly. But Labor got 58% of the primary vote. 58%. It's the biggest blowout. I can't recall a primary vote that high. And I went looking back to quite a few state elections. Got to 2011. A genuine Seth will probably tell us, but 2011 was where Barry O'Farrell was swept of power in New South Wales. And he got 51.5 of the primary vote. That was a crushing victory too, but 58, nothing. Yeah. We've seen nothing like this, certainly not in recent times. Labor has total control in both houses. It didn't before this election. It did not have a majority in the Legislative Council, the upper house. And now it's looking like getting 21 to 22 seats in the 36-seat Legislative Council. And there really are some other strange things. In Dalkeith, in Peppermint Grove, Perth's Millionaire Rows, these people have voted for Labor, for McGowan, for the very first time, for McGowan Labor, for the very first time. And I guess there's all sorts of reasons for this. We're obviously being told that, the management of the pandemic is one thing, and no doubt that's true. There's a general view that McGowan had handled the pandemic well. The internal lockdown, the lockdown of cities and regional centres didn't last long in Western Australia. And then, of course, the borders went up and remained up for a long time. And, of course, Western Australians absolutely loved it. And, of course, they just love the very idea that...
It's like the mini secession.
Look, if McGowan is in any trouble in the future, and that doesn't look possible, by the way, but he might have to play the secession card just to get that up. But he's got really nothing to worry about at the moment. The other thing you got to remember is that WA remained in growth, in economic growth throughout. There was no recession in Western Australia.
Yeah,
and that's kind of world leading too in me. Look, there were other things at play besides pandemic management, and look, the young kitty running, or the opposition leader, Liberal leader, Zach Zerkup. Look, just a pro tip,
future
son.
Prime Minister, as he like to say.
Pro tip, son. Don't give the game away 2 weeks before they count the vote, before the first vote is counted. I mean, don't just say, that's it, we're all lost. I mean, I know he was doing a harm minimisation thing, and there was always this sense that, like, I am going to be an honest guy, and I'm not going to, lapse into those sort of political, delusions that we're still in with a chance. But that's exactly what he had to say, that they were still in with a chance, and they could still have a major influence on what happened and those sorts of things. And, he was in it to win it. That's what he should have been saying. But instead, 2 weeks ago, he's just said, nah, look, we got no hope. And this resonated at the ballot box. I heard stories about people handing out how to vote cards saying, getting responses from voters saying, well, we're not going to vote for you. You're a loser. You're a loser. So really, a bit of a tip there, young Zach, although you won't have to worry about it because your political career is over. The other thing that's really interesting, young Zach, I don't know. They'll probably find him a spot somewhere in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal.
He'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be running a photocopier there. Anyway, yes, making sure the toner's loaded, and that'll be his job. Anyway, look, there were concerns.
Noble work.
While Zach turned up as a fairly moderate character, there were concerns about the Liberal Party and its connections to the Christian or evangelical right, or that the Christian or evangelical right was basically encroaching on the party and infiltrating them. And obviously, I mean, look, it's the 21st century. If you're going to run an anti-abortion major political party, look forward to having the shit kicked out of you at the ballot box. That's just an example. So you're just going, not going to do that. The other thing is that the no mandatory vaccine party polled more votes than One Nation. That's kind of took me by surprise too.
That is
there's only 45% of the vote counted, but anti-vaxxers outpolled One Nation by about 20%. What's counted so far? 11,000 votes to 8,000. So there's 19,000 half-wits in Western Australia we've already identified. So quite remarkable that.
I would say it's just a shift across though. It's the mandatory vaccination guys have just nicked the votes from One Nation.
Well,
and this is the thing.
It's a big red line under One Nation, and it says to them, "Do we get into this? Do we actively?"
Absolutely. It is such the
anti-vaccination movement.
It's a red rag.
Yeah, it's a big step for them to take. It's
absolutely an invitation to court these assholes.
Mm.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things where if they don't do it now, they'll be too late to do it later. So I think I've thought this for a while, though. I've said on record that One Nation's going to pander to these guys, and I think this is going to be an indication saying, do it now, or maybe just stop being a party.
Yeah. And speaking of minor parties,
we're going to go for the lunatic fringe.
Well, here we are. We have hit the fringe. We have some news on the party of Pete Evans, the Great Australian Party. What a great name. It's a great name because Australia's great, right? We have talked about the party that invited Pete Evans to the Senate in previous episodes. They've invited him, sent him a card and everything. The Great Australian Party, GOP, was founded by Rodney Culleton, previously elected to the Senate under the One Nation banner, but determined by the High Court to have been ineligible at the time of the 2013 election, as he was under conviction for larceny, and subsequently was rendered bankrupt by one of his creditors to whom he owed more than $200,000. This is Australia's sovereign citizen party. They have big numbers in WA, particularly in the southwest of the state, the wheat belt, where Sov sits make a lot of noise. Interestingly, they chose not to run candidates in the state election in WA on Saturday. Now, it is interesting, Joel. What do you reckon they're up to there? Do you reckon they just weren't ready? But I think the real issue is they didn't want to basically burn all their publicity so early. They want to have a crack at the federal election, thinking.
I don't think you're wrong there.
I
think maybe the thing with the GAP is they don't believe in state government.
Well,
they don't believe in federal government either. So
they don't believe in government. They don't believe in government. They will take the salary. They're willing. I do know.
No, they will. Yep.
I do know that Rodney did take the salary
and the Comcar,
which was actually technically repayable. And the president of the Senate did chase him up for a while, but I think got tired of saying, basically Rodney Culleton owed the Commonwealth his salary as a senator and all the benefits that he received as well. They don't like.
I tell you who's really easy to get money out of? A bankrupt.
I think the president of the Senate just got sick and tired of writing the reminder letters. Look, we do remind you that you currently owe us $250,000. Anyway, like most sovereign citizens, Culleton doesn't believe in paying his bills. That's the thing. In the 2019 federal election, he ran as a GOP candidate for the Senate in WA while he was an undischarged bankrupt. And this led to the Australian Electoral Commission referring his nomination form, a statutory declaration, to the AFP, Australian Federal Police. But nothing came of it. The GOP polled poorly and no one seemed to give a shit. So here we are again, because we can report he remains an undischarged bankrupt. That is one thing that we discovered on the conditional release program on Friday, that he remains an undischarged bankrupt. And going off the party's website, he looks like he'll be on top of the GOP ticket for the Senate in WA. And yes, you've got to wonder about all this. I mean, the nomination form, just to explain to people, when you are a candidate, either as an independent or representing a particular political party, you will receive from the AEC a nomination form. When writs are issued and the election has been called, those nominations are required to be completed and sent to the AEC. Now, on that nomination form, Section 44 of the Australian Constitution appears verbatim, right? And it asks of you, it's a sworn statement, it asks of each candidate that he or she is eligible to sit in the parliament. Now, obviously, Culleton ticked the wrong box in 2019, and he's going to do it all over again. It certainly looks like that, and that's the problem we've got. You know, the AEC
didn't get in trouble the first time.
The AEC cops the blame, but they're not a policing body. They can only refer. And they did refer in 2019. The AFP decided it was a little moment. And that's because our electoral laws are really, really weak. And that's why, that's basically the way the major parties want them. So they can suck up and get some preferences for some of these parties. And not so much the Great Australian Party, I doubt Labor or the Libs will be offering them too much. But that's the way it goes. And you often have, it's one of those things that's almost ignored, but some, the major parties will actually establish their own very minor parties. A lot of that was going on in the preference whispering days. Still a little bit going on.
They fucking love shenanigans.
Yeah, so we've got...
It's so telling when, there'll be some sort of horrific thing that happens and the major parties, like when the Liberals had those... purple signs in Chinese saying you must vote Liberal sort of thing, whatever what that was. It was fucking awful. And Labor's just like, oh, it's okay. And it's their way of saying, shut up, shut up. We do this shit all the time. Shut up.
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. Terrible. So the problem we've got is that we have very, very slack laws designed not to be policed, essentially. And so what we're left with, in the case of Culleton, is, the unlikely event that he is elected to the Senate. Yeah, the only body that can say he can't do what he wants to do is the High Court. So we can only look at this in the review mirror, and so Culleton becomes a senator again. It would be referred to the High Court by the President of the Senate, by the way. So there's a whole process, and then the High Court. Well, you'd imagine it would be over fairly quickly in regard to Culleton, but nevertheless, it's an expensive, costly,
not an expensive trial,
time-consuming exercise that we sort of persist with. Yeah, and look,
he could just resign, I suppose, but.
He's not going to do that because even as a sob said, he's going to say, "Well, I'm on $200,000 a year pro rata until they sack me." That's what happened last time.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, so in other news, the big news that's come about from the Christian Porter rape allegations came last week when the deceased's complainant ex-boyfriend James Hooke issued a statement. Hooke is a trained lawyer and executive with Macquarie Group and the son of a former Liberal treasurer in South Australia. In a statement, Hooke expressed grief for his deceased friend, and concern for Porter's well-being. His statement in part reads, "Mine is just one set of recollections and I am aware of the fallibility of human memory, however unintentional. That said, I have what I consider to be clear recollections of relevant discussions I had with her," that is the deceased complainant, "over the years from mid-1988 until her death. I also have what I consider to be clear recollections of relevant discussions I had with Christian Porter from April 1992 in Perth and through the mid-1990s." Unquote. Hooke is very guarded in his statement, you can tell from the language, but it would appear that he had spoken with the complainant and was aware of the allegations from mid-1988 and had conversations with Christian Porter where these allegations may have been raised. If that is true, it appears at odds with Christian Porter's one and only public statement on the matter. In my view, Hooke's statement provides further weight for a judicial inquiry, one not required to make findings of guilt or innocence, but to assess the probity of the Attorney General. Hooke's statement further reads, in relation to any investigation of the important non-criminal aspects of this matter, I support an inquiry like either that conducted by 3 retired eminent judges after Justice Lionel Murphy was acquitted of charges, or that conducted by Dr. Vivian Tom into allegations about Justice Dyson Hayden. I'm willing to testify under oath at any appropriately convened inquiry, unquote. The concern I have is that the government, whose unerring position is not to have an inquiry, they haven't shifted from that. But if they were pushed into creating a judicial inquiry, that inquiry might be set up in a way that could only lead to an open finding, which will be misinterpreted, by some at least, as a finding of innocence on Porter's part. In the meantime, it is trial by media, no matter which way you cut it. And the thing about that is it can work both ways. And some media will seek to find Porter innocent, others guilty. The only release valve is a judicial inquiry. But can we have faith in the Morrison government that it would constitute a fair and comprehensive judicial inquiry? Questions, Joel. So many questions, and we're not getting any answers. But we do have some answers on another matter. The conditional release program has been censored, cancelled, if you like, with one of our YouTube videos coming down after a complaint from some right-wing fuckknuckle. And this was our Unholy Trinity episode where we told the story of actual pedophilia and police cover-up in Victoria in the 1960s and 1970s. It's a true story. It was a book that's been published 8 years ago now. It was subject to investigation by the Royal Commission and found to be true. Victoria Police Force offered apologies. The retired detective, or Dennis Ryan, was vindicated in the Royal Commission, subsequently received an apology from the Victoria Police Force, and was compensated by the state of Victoria. So this is a true story, but it looks like it was punted by a pilled lunatic who thought we were mocking pedophilia when we mentioned Pizzagate, which is a hoax. We told a true story.
Complete fucking fabrication.
And in the context of it, we referred to a known hoax. Either that or they really liked the way Victoria Police handled the situation in Ballarat. We don't really know. Fuck's sake, Joel, what is going on here?
You just imagine that. Yeah, look, it is a bit ridiculous. I like the idea of like someone listening to it and going, "Oh, this is a witch hunt. The cops were well within their purview. The Catholic Church were just doing their jobs." Some of
the offences that were described in that book was subject to civil and criminal proceedings subsequent and found to be true. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
And they're fucking awful. And this is the thing that's ridiculous about the idea of cancel culture and making it out this like ridiculous left-wing issue where like, you know, the right are victims, the left are the aggressors. We're all a bunch of book-burning librarians or some shit. Like, it's just this weird idea. And look, let's face it. At the end of the day, there's the left and the right. They're both clicking the report button. Yeah. And cancel culture on a scale that we're observing is not as much about a left or right ideological issue as it is about economic fucking rationalism.
Well, I don't even go. I actually ridiculous. Put it down to basic human misery. The people who simply cannot allow views and opinions and information to be presented in a way that they don't accept and are therefore offended by and then seek to have it removed. So it is age of censorship stuff, but don't think for a moment that it belongs to the left or the right. It is something that works across the board. It is a basic human failure.
This is a bipartisan effort of fuckery. So basically, to give an idea of what actually happened here, we apparently fell astray of YouTube's harassment, threat, and cyberbullying policy.
Jesus Christ.
And like, honestly, this is just ridiculous. The actual policy states that content that threatens individuals is not allowed on YouTube. We also don't allow content that targets an individual with prolonged or malicious insults based on intrinsic attributes. And these attributes can include their protected group status, which is a link to a whole bunch of protected groups which not a part of the episode, or physical traits. Unless physical traits relates to your proclivity towards raping children in a fucking church, then no, we didn't actually go after you. It's just absolutely absurd. And the thing that's really bizarre is it was the Unholy Trinity episode. Applying it to this episode is ridiculous. We can be such assholes in other episodes, but this is the one that crosses the line. But we do not call people out on public record in this episode. And the ones we do are, as we said, they are in the historical, the book. Like, it's legit. This has been through processes. But I personally think, and this is what I was saying in the economic rationalism line, that the real issue here is that we have 30 or so subscribers. Someone reported a video, and they basically looked at it. They saw we had an hour-long episode up and went, you know what? This is going to cost too much to moderate. Let's just ban the video. And it's not about whether we were harassing or cyberbullying. It's not about whether we are making problematic content. We're a small fish in a big pond. And if there's going to be any problem of liability on YouTube's part, they'd rather just delete the video and move on than actually bother to do their fucking jobs. So, I mean, look, we do not harass or cyberbully. We call people out, but usually they're people of prominence in the public. For example, we don't fuck with Pete Evans' spouse, even though she put herself out in the public, because we think these things are off limits. We don't want to target individuals who are not a part of the public purview, because that's just not cool. But YouTube don't give a fuck about these things. They don't look into requests. They don't look into reports. They don't look into appeals, because instead of spending the money and actually, moderating their platform, they're just going to do the path of least resistance. Lazy motherfuckers.
Yeah, look, I don't want to make this sound like a complete whinge from us. I mean, but the real issue for me is that what's happened here is it's something that is actually truthful and honest and an historical account of a terrible episode in Victorian social history has just been pushed aside by a fuckwit liar. I mean, so basically the disinformation won. That's what bothers me.
Yep, 100%. That really pisses me off. And the thing that's really funny is, like, a lot of our other episodes, while not being cyberbullying or harassment, I wouldn't have so much of an issue with it, because we can be a bit spicy. We can be a bit acerbic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not this one. Yeah. This is our most noble episode. This is the one moment where we went and we did something that's actually worth fucking doing, as opposed to speculating about fucking kids in tunnels and shit. And they bloody ban it.
Yeah.